My younger sister was always the favorite. She got everything: vacations, hobbies, expensive gifts, and a brand new car. Meanwhile, I was left with scraps. It wasn't until later that I discovered the reason for the favoritism. My father wasn't actually my biological dad. Suddenly, everything made sense. Growing up, I had a noticeable gap between my two front teeth. When my adult teeth came in, it only got worse. I begged my parents for braces, but they always claimed they couldn't afford them. Yet, when my sister decided she wanted to become an equestrian competitor, they magically found tens of thousands of dollars for lessons, gear, and travel. I later learned they spent around $40,000 in the first 2 years alone. All I wanted was braces, which would have cost $2,500. When she turned 16, she was gifted a brand new luxury car. When I turned 16, I was given an old, barely functioning station wagon that wasn't even safe to drive. But karma eventually caught up with them. My sister got arrested for a DUI in Florida. Florida does not play around with DUIs, and my parents couldn't buy her way out of trouble. She ended up spending 3 weeks in county jail. 6 months later, she got pulled over again, this time for another DUI, evading police, littering, and speeding. Someone from our town found out and posted the whole story on Facebook. My parents begged me not to talk about it. So, of course, I did the exact opposite. They spent thousands in legal fees, and their once pristine reputation was shattered. I laughed right in their faces and asked them how it felt to have such a perfect child. There was a girl in my class who was so overweight that only one other student could sit with her on a bench, meant for three. However, she had fair skin. On the other hand, there was a guy in my class who was quite normal and introverted, but he had dark skin. The girl never missed an opportunity to belittle him because of his complexion. She would make remarks like, "Hey, I wonder how people recognize you in the dark. Maybe that's why you at least have teeth," followed by an absurd laugh. Everyone would laugh at these jokes as if they were the first to make fun of dark skin. The guy never raised his voice against it, and those around him had the same attitude. So what? You're dark. You aren't like us, so just deal with it. One day, during lunch break, when everyone was busy chatting, the girl suddenly stood up and said, "Hey, go fill my water bottle. I'm thirsty." I was honestly shocked, not by her behavior, but by the fact that the guy refused. She then said, "Are you disobeying me? Go and fill my bottle now, you black crow." He walked up to her calmly and replied, "Go and look at yourself in the mirror. Considering your weight, you shouldn't even be drinking water." What happened next was unbelievable. The girl returned to her seat, covered her face with her arms, and started sobbing uncontrollably. All her so-called friends rushed to comfort her with childish efforts to make her stop. Then the teachers, yes, the very teachers, got involved, doing everything they could to console her and bring back her smile. I grew up with my grandparents, who raised me from birth. My biological parents had me when they were in their early 20s, but they quickly realized they weren't ready for the responsibility. Just 2 days before I was born, they asked my dad's parents to take me in. After giving birth, they left me at the hospital and disappeared before my grandparents even arrived. For the next 16 years, they were completely absent from my life. No calls, no visits, nothing. But honestly, they weren't missed. My grandparents gave me a great life, full of love and stability, and I never felt like I lacked anything. A few months ago, out of nowhere, my biological parents resurfaced. They had a new family now. Spouses, children, the whole picture, and they wanted to reconnect. Most of my extended family, including my aunts, uncles, and cousins, agreed to meet with them. No one pressured me to do the same, but after some thought, I decided to see them. I don't hate them. I just don't care to know them. It's too soon to say how I feel about my half-siblings, but I'm keeping my distance for now. My grandparents, meanwhile, have chosen to stay out of it completely. I've only met my biological parents twice since they came back. The second time, they sat me down to talk, except it wasn't really about reconnecting. They wanted to discuss my grandparents' inheritance. Specifically, they demanded that their new kids be included in the will with an equal share to mine. From what I understand, my grandparents have left me a share equal to what my aunts and uncles are getting, essentially treating me like their own child. My father, however, isn't included at all. The moment I realized they had only come back for money, I kicked them out. I was working as a trained nurse in a psychiatric ward when I was assigned to care for a patient who had attempted to harm himself. Since his admission in 2001, he hadn't spoken a word to anyone, so I knew it would be a difficult case. Before meeting him, I went through his file to prepare myself. What I read left me in shock. He was 16 when the authorities found him at home with the lifeless bodies of his entire family. He insisted he hadn't done it, claiming his friend was responsible. a friend who lived inside him and told him everything. During one of our walks about 15 minutes in, he began whispering into his left ear as if having a conversation. I overheard him murmur, "Leave me alone." I tried to ignore it and continued walking, but then he stopped abruptly, turning to me with the most unsettling smile I'd ever seen. He said the name Sophie. I froze. Sophie was my pregnant wife's name. Trying to stay calm, I forced a smile and told him I didn't know anyone by that name. Playing along, I asked, "Is she your friend?" He shook his head. "No, but my friend wants something she has." Chills ran down my spine. Then he glanced upward and added, "Ah, he wants to play with Noah." Noah was the name my wife and I had picked for our unborn son. Terrified, I immediately escorted him back to his room and submitted my resignation letter that same day. I packed my belongings and never looked back. I'm 25, and my spoiled younger brother, 23, has been coddled by our parents his entire life. If I ever got something new, he would throw a tantrum until it was taken from me and given to him. When I worked multiple jobs to buy myself a used car, my brother had a meltdown. My parents responded by buying him a brand new one, which he promptly wrecked. Growing up with him was incredibly unfair, and I blame my parents for turning him into a selfish brat. By the time I turned 18, I'd had enough. I moved out, determined to start fresh. Of course, my brother mocked me. He gleefully told me that my dad planned to combine my old room with his to make his space bigger. I just rolled my eyes and told them I was done with the family. A friend of mine got me a job as a mechanic. I already had experience, having spent time in high school fixing up the car I had worked so hard to buy. For 4 years, I had zero contact with my family, working long hours at the shop. By 22, I decided to open my own auto repair business. Thanks to my connections and smart social media marketing, it became profitable fast. I finally had something that was truly mine, built through my own hard work and determination, and I was damn proud of it.